there folks, this is Quinn, that Snazzy iPhone guy, and this is the video review of the Blue Microphones Yeti Pro. If you want a more extensive review and you want the full unleaded sampling that we've done and testing, I would recommend that you go to snazzylabs.com and search Yeti Pro for the written review. Now, this microphone, like I stated, will retail you $250, and that makes it one of the most expensive plug-and-play USB microphones on the market. However, it is one of the best. Now, what you're going to get in the box is a manual, and the manual is pretty darn extensive. It doesn't only explain really how to set up your microphone, but also how to record and in what sequences and what really settings you want to set your stuff up for. For example, if you're recording drums, you should use this setup, vocals, this setup, and it's pretty darn handy, which we'll be talking about most of the stuff in here in this review. You're also going to get a 6-foot long USB cable, which is very nice, and you're going to get a 5-pin XLR to left and right XLR, 3-pin XLR. So for example, this is a stereo microphone. You plug this into the bottom of the mic and you will get a left and right channel out, which you can then mix into stereo. And when you use XLR, from what I've kind of tested, I've gotten a better sampling rate than just going via plain USB. But this is one of the main reasons you'd want to get the Yeti Pro over the original Yeti, and the other main reason is the sampling rate. On here it is 192 kilohertz compared to the original Yetis, I believe 128, so it is pretty substantially better. And even though it uses the same capsules, this will capture better sound quality. Now this is the microphone itself. It's actually quite large. It measures about 6 inches tall, and with this stand it's probably close to 5 pounds. It's pretty darn heavy. Now, the microphone itself, this is a cardioid condenser microphone. Now, I don't really want to get into microphones and the whole dynamics between them, but with a regular microphone you see on stage, or a dynamic microphone, that's used oftentimes for vocals, and the distance in which you hold the microphone to your face determines the proximity. And proximity allows the lower frequency ranges. Now, with condenser microphones, usually you just get very crisp mids and trebles, and the bass is somewhat lackluster. And that holds true here on the Yeti Pro as well. There's not a lot of bass, but the bass that is there is not muddy, it's not distorted, and it's actually really fast. That's one of the biggest problems I've seen in microphones in this price range, like the Shure PG42, like the Audio-Technica AT2020, is the bass is just too darn slow, and it doesn't provide a lot of cohesion with the track. Luckily, that is not present with the Yeti Pro, and has been one of my favorite things about it. Now let's demo the unit itself. You will find a mute button on the front. The mute button is awesome because you don't have to go to your mixing board, or you don't have to go to your computer. You just hit the mute and you're ready to go. Now there's also a volume knob. This is to control the headphone volume. It does support headphones, which is awesome because it has zero latency monitoring, which is very handy. And we'll talk about monitoring over USB in just a minute. On the back, what you're going to find here is a couple different settings. This is a gain setting. It is digital only. There is no analog gain on this mic, which again is kind of annoying, having to walk over to your mixing board or having to have someone present at the board to deal with gain and volume levels. So I was kind of disappointed that the gain wasn't digital as well, that it wasn't analog as well, but this is a digital gain that works well when you're going via USB. Now this is your polar pattern selector. There are 4 patterns on this microphone, amongst which are stereo, which is good for recording vocals and instruments and larger crowds, like a choir, for example. It takes the source. These 2 capsules are active. This is a 3-capsule system. These 2 capsules are active, so from about here forward, you're getting sound with the stereo polar pattern. Now when we move it to omnidirectional, this is a 360 degree polar pattern, which means we can capture everything around us, which is awesome. It's great for recording whole bands. It doesn't produce the greatest sound quality, but it works for capturing whole bands. It works great for orchestras, field recordings, conference calls, that kind of stuff where you need to capture the whole environment. Now the next one is cardioid, and this is what my main setting is being, probably what your main setting will be, and that's about from this section forward. It's only this main capsule right here. Now, The reason I like this is because it's very, very distinguished and you get the best sound quality. This is great for podcasting, voiceovers, vocals, instrumentation, and all that other stuff. This is kind of the main setting. And the last setting would be bidirectional, which is, well, as it would make sense, from two directions. And that will capture the front and the back, which is great for vocal duets, again, instrumentation, and interviews where one person is on each side of the mic. So these two capsules are active. Now, on the bottom of the microphone is where things get exciting. Right here, you are going to see a USB port. Now, like I stated, this is a USB mic, and one of the greatest things about the USB port on this thing is rather than just plugging it into your computer and it is selected as an input, it actually works as an output as well. So it acts as a digital to analog converter, which is amazing because if you're monitoring your own microphone, you can also monitor the track that's being played. So this is great for stacking and recording stuff. It's excellent because you can seriously hear what's being heard from the inside. That's pretty darn cool. Now, you also have a microphone. You have a microphone mount threading here. It's just standard size for any mic stand. Right here, you have your 5-pin XLR. You plug this bad boy in, and you will be in business. And this versus this, I did find that the XLR did produce a higher quality output, which was somewhat annoying, especially since they advertised that they're the same. But that being said, the USB output isn't like detrimentally worse. It is just ever so slightly noticeable if you do have top-notch equipment. This is your 3.5mm headphone jack for monitoring the microphone as well as receiving the output from your computer. So how does this microphone perform against competitors and what is it good for? Well, it's extremely, extremely rich when it comes to recording vocals, because as with most condenser microphones, you're not capturing a lot of bass, because that's what dynamic microphones are good at. And I explained this a little bit earlier in the video. Condenser microphones capture and receive really crisp mids and highs. But that being said, the bass is not lackluster on here. It is a little bit, ever so slightly, like if you're miking up a drum kit, dynamic microphones would be better, but you have to have 7 mics and they're all close proximity and they're about $150 a piece, so then you're looking at $1,200 versus a $250 system. So this is really versatile. It's not super good at any one thing, but it's really good at almost everything. It is only $250, which seems a little bit steep, but really it's not when you look in retrospect. It's a 3-capsule microphone. The capsules are 14 millimeters and they're premium capsules. And so really it is a justifiable price. It performs excellently. It's not without its annoyances. This stand here blows. I really don't like this. It's not an ergonomic design. It does have like this cable management, which is kind of handy. You feed the cable through here. And then you can get it off your desk and out of the way. But one of the big issues for me was, since it's a condenser microphone, it's super resilient to shock. And so when you place this on your table, you even touch the table and this microphone is gonna pick it up, which is extremely, extremely annoying. And so I wish they would have just provided a shock mount and then made you go buy a microphone stand so that you could, really get that full unleaded sound. Because if you're using this dock, you get a lot of rattling, and you get a lot of itching and scratching and background and humming noises and floor noises, and it's really bothersome. And this mount is awful. It doesn't tighten very well, and your mic will drop if it gets loose, and if you screw it out, there's washers that start flying everywhere. And this is the single biggest problem with this mic for me, is the stupid stand. It's very poorly designed. Now, the other thing that bothers me is it doesn't always work over USB, especially on my Mac, on both my Macs actually. When you plug it in, it works and it pops up as an input or output device, but it doesn't actually provide an input signal. So it's not that it's on mute, or it's not that the gain is turned down. Everything is fine. It just refuses to record. So it does show up as a device and it says, hey, this is a device, and then you start recording and there's no signal. So I've had to unplug this a couple times, and you unplug it and you replug it and you unplug it and you replug it, and eventually one of these plugs, it'll work, but it's annoying that you have to unplug it and replug it a couple times to get that to work. So that was a major annoyance for me, but other than that, it really is a stellar microphone. There's not a whole lot you can complain about for $250, and it monitors extremely well. That zero latency monitoring is huge, and I really, really love this microphone. If you're looking for a sub $250 USB microphone, this is not one of the only choices, but far and above the best choice, and I can guarantee you, you'll be happy. The real question is, for current Yeti owners, is it worth upgrading from the Yeti to the Yeti Pro? And if I don't have a Yeti Pro yet, should I just get the Yeti? Well, if you're on the Yeti, I don't think there's a whole lot of reasons you should upgrade. If you want that higher sampling rate, that might be nice. And if you want to go XLR out, there's a reason to upgrade. Now, if you're looking at the Yeti and saying, okay, is the Yeti Pro worth $100 more? I would say yes. That analog and digital is huge. And I really like that that's present. Because it offers for expandability. And so if you do get more professional, this mic, you can grow into the mic rather than having you outgrow the mic. I feel that the Yeti is really easily outgrowable. However, this one you can grow into its full list of features. And so that's why I do recommend the Yeti Pro over that of the original Yeti. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, rate, comment. The Blue Yeti Pro gets a 4 out of 5 from Snazzy Labs. And as always, stay snazzy. But wait, stick around because we've done some audio tests. Let's get started. All right, so I'm here in studio and we're here to test the Blue Yeti Pro in a couple different circumstances. Now, it is going out via the 5-pin XLR to my Mackie Pro FX8, which is then going to my MacBook Pro. Now, this is, in YouTube anyways, probably not the best quality stream. I would recommend that you at least watch in 720p. And if you want the full unleaded experience, click the link in the box below to go to the snazzylabs.com post where we've pasted the full lossless audio, which will give you the best listening and sampling experience. Now, as you can see, it picks up my voice quite nicely. It does lack a little bit of low end, but not much. I mean, it's pretty well there. It's pretty tight. Now, one of the great features about all condenser microphones, and it is especially true with the Yeti Pro, is that it's not proximity based, unlike dynamic microphones. So for example, on a dynamic microphone, the closer the microphone is to your mouth, the more bass is going to be penetrated into that capsule. Now, that is not true with a condenser microphone. It's not proximity based, so that oftentimes means that the bass is a little bit more lacking. You can't really control how much comes through unless you have a mixer. Now, I've set everything to flat right now, and as you can see, the EQ is pretty well balanced. Now, it does lack ever so slightly on the low end, as all condenser microphones do, but it's actually quite good. Now, we use this all the time in my band for monitoring. We'll actually put it into omnidirectional mode, wherein all 3 capsules are activated and it can capture a 360-degree soundstage. Now, this is really awesome because we could all play in the band at the same time, and then we'll go through what we played and see discrepancies and imperfections in our track. And the Yeti Pro actually has a really good instrument separation, and the frequency response maintains a pretty quick pace. It's pretty impressive. It's very crisp in the trebles and in the mids, as really any condenser microphone that's over a couple $100 is, but it also captures the bass quite well. When you find cheaper capsules in cheaper microphones, you'll notice that the bass is oftentimes muddy, it's oftentimes distorted, and most of all, it's oftentimes slower than the rest of the track. As you can tell, it's pretty well pasted together, and it really does offer quite an excellent sound. Now, I am going to get into more than just vocals because that's obviously boring. So let's talk about how it sounds with a drum kit, how it sounds with a guitar, and how it sounds with a piano. This is the Blue Yeti Pro audio test. Thanks for watching.